Everyone keeps saying that we're in a strong economy, but there is what they are saying versus real life, and we're going to dive into that. So the job numbers came out last week.
I know. What do you think?
Well, it appears it's a pretty strong economy, but,
Sure doesn't feel that way.
I know. It's like strong economy versus real life.
Well, I wonder, I always wonder, seeing those unemployment numbers, I think the big wild card is going to be this AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much AI stuff happening right now. Like I met with a young man yesterday that's on the AI team for Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he had a big pitch this week to 1,100. Can you imagine this number? 1,100 content writers, right? At Microsoft. And I said to him, I go, how many of those are going to be in business? Like literally, how many content writers are you actually going to need at Microsoft later? And he's like, not that many, right? So it's just interesting to me. These unemployment numbers, I think they're going to continue to creep up, and I think it's going to be for different reasons.
Well, but we keep thinking that, right? And then right now we're at 4%, which is historically low. And I think everyone was surprised that it was a good jobs report the last couple of weeks.
Well, one of the controversial as it may be, that one of the things around immigration was to give some of those jobs back. Right?
It was, but I don't know if those transitions have yet taken place. I mean, it seems like.
Well, the number's down. Unemployment's down.
It is down, but the question is, though, I think for me, though, is it unemployment down because people are getting full-time jobs, or is it because they're getting part-time jobs?
Or did they just move the goalposts again? Because we saw that under the Biden administration. And that could be happening. I don't know. But I know the way that, to your point, the way that you tackle unemployment, sometimes is by the way you measure it.
And this is kind of funny, but not funny, but interesting. But I always chat with our Uber and Lyft drivers whenever we get them. And more, I'm seeing people that are unemployed that are driving.
Them.
Like we had like a scientist drive for us a couple weeks ago. And we, I had a CPA driving for me about a week ago. So I do think I always like to check in there because that gig work is what people immediately turn to when they are unemployed a lot of the time.
Well, I think you got, tech, right, which is kind of in flux a little bit. Certainly marketing, right, and legal.
Mm-hmm.
Like those for sure. Those are ones that I'm seeing. I'm sure there's more. But as I told you before, I have a friend that sold his company. He's an SEC attorney. And he called me and he said, he goes, in 5 years, I'm going to be obsolete. Maybe not completely, but he had a bunch of other partners in his firm. And he just said, the way I see it going is clients are using AI more and more and more. And he said, right now, it's never going to be worse than it is. It's always just going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think it's not, I agree it's partially AI taking on the jobs, but it's partially businesses aren't doing so hot right now. I mean, even Amazon usually has a Prime Day. Well, they just had like a Prime 5 days. And the reason for that is because they're trying to make up for sales, knowing that it's going to be soft.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you really look, some of these big companies are laying off.
Right.
Microsoft, Amazon, Google. I think I showed you that post where the guy that was quarterbacking AI for LinkedIn posted himself as unemployed because he replaced himself, right?
Yeah, but I don't just think it's tech. I think that the economy is just not doing as well as everyone wants us to think that it is. And I think Trump knows that. And I think that's part of the reason he wants the Fed to just decrease the interest rates. But to the Fed's point, they don't know with his tariffs what that's going to do. So, I mean, I don't think we're in a very strong economy. I mean, I don't think anywhere you look, anyone would say the economy is super strong right now.
No, but I tell you that we had dinner last week with some friends who, ironically, he used to manufacture things here in the U.S. And then he shipped it to China.
Right.
Because he was making more money. So I remember him flying over there and kind of outsourced everything to China. And he said he went, when the tariffs went up, he went from like 40 people down to 5. And then now he's hired them back again. He's now doing manufacturing back in the U.S. So that is an interesting example.
Yeah, but he hadn't sold his factory yet. He had just transitioned over to China. He specifically lost millions of dollars because it was such an instant change that he, even with the factory already set up here, didn't have time to transition. So,
but he did hire, if you look at his payroll from 2 years ago, He's got more people here working locally on stuff that he's manufacturing in the U.S. So that could be some of it, where people are saying, okay, I'm going to have to, if I'm going to stay in business, I have to shift, and I have to start making things in the U.S.
But I do think it's important to note that low unemployment doesn't mean these are good or secure jobs. A lot of this could be gig work. A lot of it could be part-time jobs. A lot of it could be part-time jobs on top of a full-time job. So I don't think you can just look at the 4% unemployment and say the economy is doing
Yeah, I agree. And it's something to watch, but it is one of the part of the dual mandate of the Fed.
Well, but I also do think, though, that if you look at wages have only went up 20% and inflation's went up 25% since 2020, and that 5% is a big difference.
Yeah, and that's precisely because inflation went up so much.
Right.
I think wages going up since 2020 is pretty good, actually.
No, it is.
Not if you measure it against inflation, for sure. But that's 4 to 5% a year, right? Wage growth.
But I think the concern is now is wages could go down based on, it's a supply demand issue. If there's, a oversupply of jobs, people have to pay better. If there's an undersupply of jobs, then employers can,
It's
do what they want.
It's like anything.
Yep.
Like if there's a lot of something, you don't have to pay as much.
Right.
Right.
So people are going to continue to get squeezed, though.
Correct. I agree. I think you're going to see pretty flat wage growth here over the next 5+ years. And I really, really strongly believe. I think this. It's interesting. I saw somebody say this the other day. There are going to be people that embrace AI and people that don't, and it's going to be just like the internet. Essentially, it's that much of a game changer. And the people who embrace it they're going to be super valuable. The ones that don't, they're going to be more expendable.
That's true. But I also think that AI is going to eventually take so many jobs that there's only going to be so many people that can be valuable.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
But I mean, but on the now term, I mean, you have saving rates that were like 30% in 2020 because of all the stimulus money. And now, they're down to 3.5% in 2025. And credit card debt's at a new high.
I know. Well, we've historically been horrible savers in the U.S. Like if you look, there was a huge spike of savings, but that was stimmy money, right? That went into people's accounts.
Yeah, and people didn't have much going on to go spend it on.
And it was gone pretty quick, right? And then we hit $1 trillion in credit card debt, I guess a year or two ago. And now we're way past that, right? So people are definitely getting in more debt, and they don't have as many savings. Don't have as much savings. So, but to your point, I think the other thing that some of these, we were talking about the Waymo. So we have Waymo in Phoenix, and Waymo in Phoenix is actually replacing Uber drivers. And so what it's doing is it's pushing Uber drivers out to the outskirts of town, because Uber's or Waymo is right now kind of testing in and around downtown Phoenix. And so the Uber drivers are saying it's hard to compete.
I don't know, though, because Waymo is more expensive than Uber.
Well, this is what an Uber driver told me.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
I'm going off of what an actual Uber driver said.
Yeah, one Uber driver. But what I'm saying, though, is that I find it surprising that Waymo is more expensive because they don't have to pay an employee. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of contract with the city or something that they're doing.
I don't know. On the ones that I did, it was a little bit less, but wasn't dramatically less.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the point is, it's not about who's right or wrong with regard to Uber or Waymo. Waymo will replace Uber, and we don't know where the pricing will be, but what it's going to do is it's going to displace, and it's going to mean less Uber drivers is kind of the point.
Yeah, I mean, the gig work right now is eventually also going to be replaced by AI.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that AI is going to take jobs.
Right, right. Well, and that's why I'm saying it's happening already. Think of Uber delivery, Uber Eats, the DoorDash, all that kind of stuff that requires a person, right? All that stuff, I think over time is going to be replaced. And so those secondary, third, fourth, some people just do it as a little side hustle money and not necessarily full time. I think all that is on the table, over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, they're already doing drone deliveries, for Amazon and everything else. But I do want to focus on the credit card debt because I think that delinquencies are rising from ages 18 to 39. And I found that interesting because most homeowners are about that age. So I think you're really going into this economy where you have people that own homes and people that don't. And I think the reason the delinquencies of credit card debt is rising to the 18 to 39-year-olds is because they don't own a home. So they're not in any kind of set mortgage, right? So they are having to handle rent inflation along with general inflation, where I think people that do own a home, a lot of them have a low rate, most of them, and so they're able to handle some of this inflation better.
So said another way, they're anchoring or hedging whatever they're paying monthly for a living.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, because the rent, if you have rent, you potentially, it could have some rent growth, right? Right now is a great time to be a renter, though. You got like a little window here, maybe a year to two, where you can see significant decreases in rents in a lot of areas.
It is and it's not. I mean, it is, yes, it's cheaper right now to rent than to buy a house. But if you were somebody that got a 4% mortgage in the last few years, you're probably in a better position than even a renter, and you're at a set cost.
Maybe. It depends on where the market is. As you know, we have areas of Phoenix that are 2, 3, and even 4 months free on a 12-month lease. So when you start to see that kind of concession rolling through, and it's everywhere. It's in Atlanta, it's in Dallas, it's in Phoenix, anywhere that there's a lot of apartments been added. You can cut a lot of deals right now on the rental side of the equation, and then not to mention the failed Airbnbs. Those are coming back into the rental house market. So rents are flat. I mean, you yourself sold a property because you had your rents started coming backwards, right?
Yeah, yeah, they went back about 100 a month.
Yeah. So it's so from a renter standpoint, I would think that it's kind of soft. From a landlord standpoint, rents are soft. It's a good time to be a renter right now. And so what's interesting to me is even with that, we're starting to see these delinquents with the credit cards.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I think is interesting is you have like buy now, pay later. That's kind of new. I think that rolled out right around 2020, or at least got popular around
Yep.
2020. And so you have a lot of all of that kind of, you have all that going on
That's a
on top
sign
of
of
people.
stretch budgets, right? Like these people are financing groceries.
They are. And it's interesting to think about, right? Because the question would be, can they really not afford to live, or are they just used to a certain lifestyle that they're funding on their credit card, right? Like, yes, they're putting groceries on their credit card, but are they going to Starbucks every day? Because this generation, we haven't had a recession really since I graduated college. And so this whole generation behind me and even my generation have gotten very used to the economy being good and kind of spending money. So I always do wonder, what people, if they're leveraging because they have to, or if they're leveraging because they're just used to kind of these perks and luxuries that maybe they can't afford.
I think it's a little of both, I think generally, I think most people believe that they're going to have the same level of cash coming in tomorrow, that they had yesterday, right? Like, and I think that's the issue. Most people aren't really that thoughtful around this. They're using their credit cards at probably the pace they were expecting money to come in and cover it, right?
But also expecting that the rate's the same. But most credit card rates now are like 20, 30%.
It's
I mean, it's
insane.
insane.
Yeah.
So, back in 2019, I don't know, they probably were closer to like 17, 18%. And so, people don't realize how much additional money that is in interest on their balance.
It's a lot of money, unless you're paying it off every month. And some of these people aren't.
But you'd have to assume most are.
And that's the hidden bomb, right? Like if somebody has a blip where they get laid off, even if they get a job, 30 days later, let's say, and their pay starts coming in 30 days later, that finance on the credit card is a lot of money, right?
Yep.
That's when it starts to really, really add up. So for those of you who are paying off these minimum payments, be careful because your principal might be growing. What you really need to do, as you well know, is to buy down that principal. Because if you're falling behind if you're paying in the 20% on a credit card balance.
Yeah, I mean, that's like step one before you even think about buying a house is to pay off your credit card.
Yeah, but just think of the amount of money. I mean, you got 20 grand in credit card debt, which is low these days. At 20%, that's $300 or $400 a month.
Right.
That's a lot
Of interest.
just of interest,
Yeah.
right? And most people can't. You got to chunk that down, man.
Well, yeah, and it'd be interesting if the Fed were to bring rates down, if credit card rates would go down, because I have not heard really of credit card rates going on, nowadays.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting if they did. But the reason that they are up is in part because of the federal funds rate.
1.3 trillion now in
Yeah.
credit card debt. That's just insane.
Mhm.
If you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, even back in my day, when I worked retail, and it was only 20 years ago, I mean, we took checks. Not very many people paid with credit cards. It was kind of be like, oh, we got to get the credit card machine out. You know what I mean? And now it's like,
I know.
nobody pays with cash. People don't even take checks anymore. And so
I had a funny conversation with Kyle, my son, the other day. He's like, I've never written a check. I go,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
He's never written a check.
Yeah, I
Ever.
can see that. Yeah.
It's nuts, right? And now we're heading, and of course, then the next generation was credit cards, and now that's almost gone.
Well, it'll be like signing, or now you just
It'll be, remember how you just put your phone in
Yeah.
front of something and you'll
True.
load your phone up and away you go.
True, right? Yeah. Well, and then the other thing with all this inflation is tariffs. Tariffs are a big unknown here.
Oh, this is your little soapbox.
Well, Trump is back and forth.
I know.
How-
Neil's fired up at Trump right now.
Well, I just think that it's not helpful. I mean, I understand the purpose to bring jobs back. I get it. I know. But it just seems like the way our system works and how we have a new president every 4 years, what company, knowing in 4 years that we might not have, we might open to a world economy again, is going to invest billions of dollars. And even our friend Michael was saying that he didn't have any time to prep for this. And the only reason that his business was even saved is because he still had a facility here because he hadn't sold it yet.
Yeah, I know. It's a really good
Yeah.
point. He said he had $4 million of inventory in China.
Yeah, that
And-
now has
and
to sell to Canada.
He said he's going to bring it into Canada at 6% tariff.
Yeah.
And then he's going to sell it up there because he's an international brand. So he can sell that $4 million of inventory in Canada. But he's now taking a look at that, to your point, right? But all that stuff was being made and manufactured in China. But he's moving it back.
Well, what'll be interesting is how much he has to sell the crepe for now that it is being made in the U.S., because I can guarantee you what he was selling it for in 2020 with the labor cost and material cost then is going to be significantly different. The only reason he was able to keep it the same price in 2025 is because he was making it in China. Now, granted, his profit was better, which is why he did it. But moving it back, he's going to probably have to increase the price of the product, which then goes to the consumer.
Well,
it would be interesting to have him on.
That'd be interesting to see what he really did with prices.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he kept them the same, maybe he didn't.
Yeah,
we don't know the answer.
He said right now that he has so far because he's just trying to get everything up and running again.
Yeah. I mean, during when Trump did the tariff thing, but by the way, he's not the only one. Like I met a guy that was, believe it or not, has a huge contract with Lowe's and Home Depot in the plumbing product side. And he's like 100% of what they do is through China.
Yeah.
So literally a U.S. company that has everything made in China that sells it, that has a contract with Home Depot, like 25 years they've been doing it. And I think that's kind of the point, even though he's getting whacked pretty good. It's kind of the point. Trump wants all that stuff made in the U.S. He wants U.S. jobs, even though at the end of the day, and what's going to happen is those products are going to be more money.
Yeah, they are. And if they come over here to be made at all.
If they're being made at all, right. Then some people are going to different places like Vietnam, Indonesia, some of these other areas, Mexico, as we already know. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as he moves it around. But there should be no debate on whether or not it adds to the cost.
And I think that's a lot of the reason why. The Fed has not cut rates yet is because tariffs are a big unknown. And, while I think that a rate cuts would be great for us, I also understand why they're tentative because the tariffs really haven't fully gone into effect yet. And it's going to have a lag to it when it does.
So here's my philosophy on why Trump and Powell are going locking arms right now. You know why?
Egos?
No, well, yes, of course, that for sure. But here's what I think. I think that if Powell lowers rates, Trump can point to him and say it's that, not tariffs.
That and
In other words, if
inflation.
yeah, so if inflation comes, Powell can say we didn't do anything with the interest rates; it's the tariffs.
Right.
If Powell lowers rates, then then Trump can go, well, it wasn't us, it wasn't the tariffs, it was the lower interest rates are creating it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think that could definitely happen.
So,
But the other thing too is just because Powell lowers the federal funds rate does not mean interest rates will go down. So there's that.
That's
too.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the 10-year, is what a lot of my deals is. It's still, I think last I looked, it was like 4.4. So that really hasn't, come down much either. So, but the one thing we're sure of is that as interest rates get lowered, whatever index you're looking at, it definitely creates a bubble.
But I do think that the Fed has to understand. So, they monitor unemployment and then they monitor inflation. But, this underemployment, instead of unemployment, this underemployment and people getting squeezed because, while it does help us to have lower rates to buy homes and things like that, it's also car loans, it's also credit card debt, it's also student loans that aren't federally funded. All these things are based on the federal funds rate. So it's squeezing your everyday person. So they're going to have to pay attention to that as well. And that's why it'll be interesting because they meet at the end of this month. So it'll be interesting to see, I read that basically they probably still are not going to lower rates. There's a small chance they can, but the minutes will be more undecisive, meaning there'll be more people from the board that want to lower them than have before.
Right. And then, he's hanging on the fact that apparently the fees are way up, right? The stuff that's coming in.
Yep.
So I don't know what the current numbers are, but that's something that he's kind of hanging his hat on. It's those to bring those products in, it's creating a lot of revenue, right? So you're talking about, import heavy retailers like Walmart, Target, that kind of stuff. Think of that. Those are obviously retailers that are buying a lot of stuff from out of the country.
Yeah, and then the market is showing a lot of pressure to cut rates too, right? You have Trump putting on pressure, you have the market putting on pressure, you have Trump. What do you say? He's going to appoint a shadow chair.
Well, the new chair comes in next May. So, we got almost a year, not quite 10 months, I suppose, of Powell. But it doesn't look like Powell's going to budge,
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. The issue with the uncertainty, I think, is the big thing right now for the market, right? Because markets don't really like uncertainty. And if Trump were to get a shadow chair in, like he said, that would basically come in early, say, I'm going to be taking over in May. This is what I'm going to do. That would create a lot of uncertainty in the market. Like, I think, well, it would, because then, the market doesn't know what to do, like what should they base it on, right? And so that would cause a problem. But it would be good for real estate because people would then want to get in before rates go down, right?
Yeah, I suppose if they project it forward, everybody knows he wants rates lower. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue. So whoever he appoints, more than likely, he's going to appoint somebody that does that for him.
But he appointed Powell.
He did, but it's
not working out, is it? Did a switching act. He's like, haha, I got in. Now I'm going to do what I want.
Well, he did for a little bit, but I think, obviously lower rates will fire up the economy again. I mean,
it depends on the state of the economy, though.
It will help, though. Yeah, you're right. Even when a bad state, like if let's say real estate, goes to hell in a handbasket. If rates go down, then people will be buying with lower rates. You know what I mean?
Well, and you're right. And people do solve to their monthly payment, so they would start buying cars,
right,
things again. As long as they had a job. That is the big thing, though, because when people lose their job, that's when it doesn't really matter what rate.
That's the great equalizer, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a coder or you're in marketing or you're an attorney, and all of a sudden you've been replaced by AI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a lot of stuff legal through AI. I mean, and
it's a little obsessed with AI.
Well, I'm telling you guys, telling you. No, I'm in the middle of this right now. I mean, I'm not sending legal documents to my attorney right now until I need to, right at the end, right?
Right.
I'm doing a lot of stuff without them. And, so all of a sudden I don't have a phone call. I don't have a meeting. I don't have a Zoom. I don't have emails back and forth. I'm actually doing a fair amount of work myself, and then I get them on the phone. And I'm just telling you, it's already happening.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it'll be interesting. We always talk about like a universal basic income, or, it's funny. Bernie Sanders was on Rogan a couple of weeks ago, and, Rogan asked him straight up, like, what do you do when tech starts taking over part of the jobs? Now, Bernie assumed that tech would only take over like 25% of the jobs. So his solution was lower everyone's work week to 32 hours, keep giving them the same pay, and then bring AI in for that 20% or whatever.
That's a guy that's never owned a business.
But anyways, but then Rogan said 20% of the jobs. What if it's 75% of the jobs, right? And then Bernie's like,
then just floor him to 8 hours a week, and pay him the same.
But but it'll be interesting because you basically start to get this UBI, or really, there is already UBI in the government. I mean, I know people that work for the government that barely do any work and get a salary, and they'll fully admit that to me, right? But it really is already a UBI structure. It's just, you have a job, quote unquote, you do a little bit of stuff, we're going to pay you a pretty basic wage and we're good to go, right? But I do think some of either the government jobs or some kind of handouts or UBI, I mean, they have to do something. You can't just have.
But if you have a job like that, you hate Trump. You hate Doge, right? If you're sitting there getting a lot of money for not doing much, you're fighting like crazy. Like you're on the blue team.
You are, but even Republicans are going to have to face this, though, because if you really do, and I do think, and I don't think it's going to be that long, a lot of it's going to be white collar jobs, like 60%, unemployment, because, the AI can do it, then you're going to have to do something. I mean, you can't just tell people to switch careers at 50 years old and learn how to work on air conditioning.
Well, first of all, nobody can tell anybody to do anything. The market is going to tell them.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. Like, if you have high unemployment.
That's AI right now. I don't know. Like, what's happening?
Well, I'm a little bit obsessed with this UBI. So, I'm going to get a zillion comments on this, but I listened to Andrew Yang on Rogan probably 6 or 7 years ago talking about UBI. And at the time I really was like, I don't know, but as we progress through this AI and as we don't need as many people to work, we do have to do something. And whether it's UBI or it's housing vouchers or whatever you want to call it, you're just not going to have the jobs. Because even if you, like you said, you're an employee and you stay up on AI and you're really good at it, there's only so many needed. I mean, that's the whole point of AI, is to have less workers, really.
Yeah, what did they say? Feed them cake.
Yeah.
For that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I met with a lady on that real estate guys cruise we were on, and they own assisted living homes. And what she wants is she's trying to look into, and they have it overseas. So she's looking at bringing it here, but robots to distribute pills,
Wow.
So like, instead of having to have,
who do you blame?
Instead of having to have a nurse, and I said that, I go, what if the robot makes a mistake? She goes, do you know how often that we have nurses making mistakes? And I'm like, good point. Like human error is probably more than, AI error, right? Like, so,
but yes.
Yeah. I mean, so it was just an interesting concept, but I mean, every job you're looking at, I mean, when we were at the airport,
in Miami,
there was remote control wheelchairs that take the person to where they need to go. So, the people that push the wheelchairs, like, they're not really needed anymore, because they have these AI wheelchairs. So it's just,
I don't know. You're a little obsessed with AI today. Like, what's happening?
I'm obsessed with the result of the AI. I'm obsessed. I'm very interested on.
Got it. Not AI stuff, but the result.
Yes, that
I see.
Not cause, but the effect.
I should have been more specific. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking about the result.
I'm the effective AI is where I am, but it will be interesting. It's just going to be very, very different in the next 5 or so years.
Well, there's one thing for sure. Things are not going to be less expensive.
Nope.
Right?
Not.
We know that for sure. And I don't think that, you're going to have to, rates are going to have to come down 2 to 3% in order to really move the economy. Okay. So everybody's squabbling over this half a point or quarter point here and there, right? And I think you might get that out of Powell just to try to, put a cork in it for Trump. But at the end of the day, it's not going to move the needle that much. It'll help a little bit here and there, but it's not going to. Trump, last time, didn't he say he wanted like a 3% market move? The reason he said that is because there's a tremendous amount of locked up equity. I think the last I looked, it was like 11 or 12 trillion dollars sitting in people's equity in their homes. And everybody's looking at that, and Trump wants that money to move. He wants that money to be refinanced. He wants that money to, go buy new cars, and people unlock that equity. The economy will kickstart.
Yeah, nobody can unlock it now because nobody wants to do it at 7%.
It's so far up there, right?
Yeah.
Compared to where, I think last I looked, it was like 62% of people were 4% or under or something. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that don't have a mortgage at all.
Right.
So you have those big categories of people. So you're really talking about a very small percentage of people that are going to start churning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, it's been long enough. There'll be people that are going, our house is getting dated. Let's upgrade. Let's move into something new. There's a whole economy that opens up when rates are low.
Absolutely. And I think too, as things start to transition, people will kind of look at that monthly payment and say, okay, it's only down half a point, but that did lower our payment X amount, or rates are then trending downward. So let's get on this boat before it goes down even further.
And that takes a lot of pressure off of wage growth. So if credit card rates go down and auto rates go, right now they're 7, 8, 9%. If they go down, mortgage rates go down, all of a sudden you can free up hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars in monthly, right? Mm-hmm. For people. It is almost like a wage increase if rates go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Because almost everybody has things financed.
Yeah, because their expenses go down, mm-hmm. right? So it is an interesting way to think about things. But if rates do go down, then all of a sudden, potentially, we could have a bubble again, right?
Yeah. Inflation could definitely go up if rates go down, just depending on how the market is at that time.
But right now, it seems to be holding steady.
It is. I mean, real estate prices are softening a little bit. I mean, we're definitely seeing that in the Phoenix market, and I think nationally is most areas.
Commercial stuff's adjusted and already mm-hmm. bouncing along the bottom generally in most cases. So
yeah. And I was reading something too where, it was saying even if property values go down 10 or 15%, they went up so much the last few years. The only people that are going to get screwed are the people that bought in the last couple of years.
Right.
Which is true.
Yep. Right. And they can't come back in the market because rates are 7%.
Right.
So I can't wait to talk about this and more at Limitless. We got 2 weeks from today.
I know, down in Grapevine, Texas.
I know, limitlessexpo.com. So we're going to have this discussion plus so many more, like on gold, on interest rates, on where the economy heading.
All right, see you guys at Limitless.
See you guys.